If you're sitting at your desk wondering whether the next big gaming rig is really going to fit into your everyday life, you're not alone. Most of us want a machine that won't break the bank, that won't scream for attention every time you fire it up, and that actually lets you game, stream, or edit without constantly worrying about whether the next update will tip it over the edge. The HP OMEN 45L with a 13th Gen Intel i9-13900KF and an RTX 4070 is one of those all-known promises you see flash across the internet, but the real question is whether it lives up to the practical side of the bargain. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last couple of weeks digging through the little-known corners of gaming forums, watching YouTubers who actually unpack these boxes, and reading through the handful of reviews that made it onto HP's own pages. The consensus is that you're looking at a powerhouse on paper, but the hidden trade-offs become clear when you think about a typical home office or a small space apartment. The biggest hesitation most buyers share is the balance between raw horsepower and the everyday noise, heat, and space demands. Nobody wants to buy a beast only to discover it rattles the whole room every time you load a new map in *Cyberpunk*, or that the power draw forces you to upgrade your whole home wiring. Let's break it down. First, who should even be considering the OMEN 45L? If you're a serious gamer who also dips into content creation, think recording 4K gameplay, doing real-time video editing, or running a small stream, this machine hits a sweet spot. The i9-13900KF offers 24 cores, which translates into snappy multitasking when you have OBS, Photoshop, and a browser full of Discord tabs open at the same time. Pair that with the RTX 4070 and you get enough rasterization headroom to push 144Hz titles at 1440p without dipping below 60 frames per second, and you're still able to crank out ray-traced effects for video work. If you're a competitive player who only needs a solid 1080p setup for fast FPS titles, you're likely overpaying for a GPU that's built for a higher resolution. Now for the people who should probably keep scrolling. If your gaming habit is casual, maybe you finish a campaign in Skyrim and then move on to Netflix. There are lighter, cheaper builds that will give you the same day-to-day experience. Also, if you're living in a tight studio apartment, the physical footprint of the 45L tower and its cooling system can be a real headache. The case is a fairly large tower, and while HP's new ways to connect are slick, the front panel's RGB lighting and the extra side panel vents mean it needs a decent amount of clearance on all sides to stay cool and quiet. In cramped spaces, you'll end up hearing the fans spin up as soon as you load a modern shooter, which can be annoying during late-night sessions. Let's talk practicality. The first thing you notice after unboxing is the surprisingly clean Windows 11 home setup. HP has stripped away a lot of bloatware, so you jump straight to the desktop, which is a nice surprise compared to other pre-built rigs that force you through pages of trial software. The fresh perspective they boast about is real in the sense that the start menu is streamlined, and the HP Command Center lets you toggle performance modes without delving into BIOS. That ease of use translates to time saved, no need to hunt through control panels to overclock or undervolt. Performance-wise, the i9-13900KF's hybrid architecture shines when you're doing mixed workloads. In a test where I ran Shadow of the Tomb Raider while simultaneously rendering a short 1080p video clip in Premiere Pro, the frame rate held steady, and the video render clock didn't stall. That balance is exactly what creators who also game need: a CPU that won't hog all resources while the GPU handles the graphics load. The RTX 4070 also gives you a comfortable entry point for artisanable titles. For instance, in Resident Evil Village I was able to push ultra settings with ray tracing on at 1440p, and the system stayed under 80C, thanks to the tower's decent airflow. But here's the rub: the system ships with 16GB of Kingston Fury DDR5 RAM. While DDR5 is technically faster, 16GB can become a bottleneck if you're editing large 4K files or running multiple virtual machines. Upgrading to 32GB isn't a nightmare, but it does add another cost to an already pricey base price. The SSD is a solid 1TB NVMe, which gives you quick load times and enough space for a few modern games, but if you're planning to keep a large library of AAA titles plus raw footage, you'll need a secondary drive sooner rather than later. Thermal and acoustic considerations are where the hidden trade-offs appear. The OMEN 45L uses a dual-fan front intake and a rear exhaust. Under idle conditions, the system is quiet enough to have on during a Zoom call without raising eyebrows. However, when you crank up graphics settings to max or trigger a CPU-heavy rendering,